Life becomes funnier as time goes on, as you pass through each level of growth. When something was hard at one point, then it becomes just super easy. When you look back at yourself and you're almost disgusted, right? You're embarrassed with yourself. And when you just look back and you're like, I can't believe I tolerated that. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I thought that way. I can't believe I believed in it. I can't believe I I was even that person. Like, I can't believe that was my way of life. It was just, you look back and it just becomes so laughable every time that you were in that position, that you maybe believed lies or things that you didn't even know about, and you went, made the wrong decisions. And as more and more as you like grow and then you conquer things, the whole idea around growth, and to put simply, is just by making hard things easy. And it's not that that hard thing was never hard, it's that you just become so much better at them that it just makes it easy for you now. That it's secondhand nature, that it's nothing you have to think about. It just, you do it, it just happens. And that's what the levels of growth is. It's like you do step one and then it comes easy, which enables you to do step two much better, which helps you, conquer step two and then get to step three. And at each level, at each area of your life, you have these growth points, that you just have to make it so that the hard isn't hard anymore, because you did it so much, that you tweaked it so much that it became so easy, and you just never looked back. Because if you were somebody, just starting to walk, for example, like when you were a baby, it was probably one of the hardest things to do. You couldn't figure it out. And then all of a sudden you just did it. And then now we just walk, right? It's not anything big. Like we can walk, we can run, we can do all these types of movements because we started with just one step. We started with just taking our first step, making those movements, and then we were able to move in different ways. Uh, we made what like felt so painful just become almost nothing, because even though the pain level was still there, like at the time it was a little like a level 10 pain for us, a 10 out of 10 pain. And now it's not a 10 out of 10 pain because we have a new pain threshold, that maybe is now just put all the way to the bottom. It's like a 1 out of 10, 1 being the easiest to handle. And now your new 10 out of 10 pain is just makes you look back at it and just laugh. And you're just like, why was I even thinking that was hard? And that's when you know you've grown. And that's why life just keeps on getting funnier, and not even just physically or mentally demanding things that you become good at. It's also the lies and the truths in the world. You might believe something that's totally a lie, and then once you find the truths of it, or maybe it was just an unknown, you had no idea. Like, it's not, you didn't believe either way. It was just something you had no idea you had to know. It was something, it was an unknown of an unknown. But then once you come about it and you find the truth in it, you gain that knowledge, and you now, have that knowledge, or you have that experience. It becomes so laughable that you didn't even think, something was even possible beforehand, or that the truth of it was even there. Like, you never, it was like a very, it's all uncertainty. Like, that's what makes this world sometimes so special, is just that there's things out there that we don't even know we need to know, and then we'll just find it, by just, moving through the motions, and working up the next levels, and just studying stuff. It's just amazing when you look at it, but it's just laughable. Like, you become like so, as you do this more and more. In the beginning, it's just pain, right? It's just brute force pain that you don't understand. You're like, why does this hurt? Why is this hard? You don't want to do it. Maybe you like shy away from it. But then you start going through the motions of actually taking the action, taking the first steps, and then just, repetition keeps it going. You just put so many reps in that it becomes easy, and then you train your own brain, you train yourself to understand that, wait, if that one thing was hard, but now it's easy, well, what's my next hard thing that I have to make easy? And not only what is that next thing, I don't want to shy away from it anymore. It's like I know that eventually this hard thing will just be easy. So it becomes just this cycle of like, we know if we just work on it, it'll be easy. And that also makes us have a better idea of where to make a decision, and makes it easier for us just to take action to begin with. Because at first it is the problem. Like, the hard is just taking action. But if you talk to somebody that's at level 10 and you're at level 1 of like it being hard to take action, they're just looking back and being like, "What are you doing, man? Like, are you lazy?" Like, they're probably calling you names because they're like, "This, you're an idiot. Like, what's your problem?" But to you, it's still hard. It's the same hard as they're feeling on their stage, and it is just conquering the first of just like, you got to do it. You got to take the action, and then once you just get in the motion of the action, it's like, oh well. I mean, yeah, I can just take action whenever. It's not like a big deal. I might not be good at this thing yet, but I'll go out and do it. I'll go out and suck. I'll go and be bad at it. But once you become comfortable at just taking action, even though you're bad at it, then it's like, okay, now that it's easy to just take action, that's not going to be an extra strain on myself. Let me start becoming good at this thing. So now you find different ways to become good at it. You conquer that next beast. You conquer that next step. And this this is something that's enlightened me even on the sides of beliefs, truths, and lies. It's like you become more understanding of what's going on. You know, with past experiences, you're going through them, and you might like study it, analyze it, and figure out like, oh, this is why X happened. Uh, and sometimes you come to the wrong conclusion, right? Even in in science, sometimes we come to the wrong answers, and then the next lesson teaches us, oh wow, that wasn't true at all. We were focusing on the wrong, maybe we were focusing on the wrong problem. We were assuming something was the indicator and it was the problem, but it really wasn't. It was this other thing. And as you find those truths, it makes you feel so stupid because you're like, how did I not know this? Right? And that's where the embarrassment comes from. And then the goal here is now just to not dwell on the embarrassment. But maybe for you, it's your first time feeling embarrassed about being stupid, so you don't understand that I mean, now your next battle is to conquer the embarrassment. It's just to understand that it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to always be embarrassed. But being embarrassed just means that was old you, and you don't have to be in those cycles. You don't have to think that you're still that stupid person that, didn't know that thing, because now you know that thing. Now you're grown. Now you changed. It doesn't mean that you're still stupid in other areas. There's other areas that you don't know yet. But it means you conquered that one. That you moved away from that one. And I think the more you do this, the faster you understand when you've conquered each beast, when you've gained a new insight, gained new knowledge. And even in the beginning, when we're gaining this new knowledge, going through these battles, we don't understand how to use them. We might have been taught something, but we don't understand how to use it yet. Because we're like, well, yeah, I know it, but then you don't really act on what you know. You don't actually use it. And as we just become better and more accustomed to these things, we understand how to use our knowledge and apply it. We understand that every time, at one point we were stupid, we don't have to feel stupid anymore. We don't have to feel like that was us, that is us. Because the past you isn't the you now. If you were stuck in a cycle beforehand of like, it just kept tearing you down, you kept going through something that just It was up and down, up and down. But then you acknowledge it, you learn from it, you understand maybe why it's happening, or you acknowledge that it is happening. It doesn't mean it has to continue. You can make the change. You can now teach yourself the new ways. And we get stuck in our heads where we might feel like, well, that is us. Well, no, it's not you. You have everything in control to change it. I mean, just because you acknowledged it and that was you, and maybe you are doing it right now. Maybe you're acknowledging that in the moment you are doing this. But in that moment, you can stop immediately. You have the power in you to just stop it. Or just continue on your way. Because sometimes we think like a cycle of emotion is dragging us down and it's dictating whatever we do. And if you're stuck in that, then you're completely wrong. It means you let your emotions control everything you do. You're always going to be on a roller coaster. What's more important is just understanding that, yeah, you might acknowledge that you have that cycle. It doesn't mean you have to act on the emotion. Like, you can still go forward with whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter. It's just there. So acknowledging the cycle can be good for that case, where you just understand it is a cycle. It will get better. It will get worse again. It will get better. It will get worse. But you can still do the same things. You can still work. You can still push forward. You can still, move one foot in front of the other and take the next step. And each time, you might not even understand the next beast. You might even be asking yourself, what is my next thing? It's like, man, if I was stupid in that, what else do I not know? Like, that's what becomes so amazing with living in the world too, and just trying to master something. It keeps the game going. You're like, I'm probably barely scratching the surface of what I could know. And then it can give you a sense of drive. It's like, well, okay, now it's time to go and learn it. But when we start to dwell on these things, and I think a lot of people, especially in the beginning stages, even myself, we dwell on the fact that we were stupid, we made a bad decision, or we hung out with certain people, we did certain things, you tolerated being around certain people, you tolerated certain activities, and then you might look back and you're like, why the heck? Like, why did I even tolerate a single thing of that? But that new feeling, that new realization is everything you need to know that you're changed. That's everything you need to know. When you feel that, it's like, yeah, I'm never doing that again, because that's not me anymore. Forgive my past. Forgive what I did. Forgive, the assumptions I had. Forgive what I was believing in. Forgive all the limiting beliefs I had on me. Forgive all the strains I put on myself, all the weight I put on myself. Because now I realize I don't have to have all that weight. I don't have to do all those things. I don't have to tolerate that. Because now it's completely laughable and irrelevant to what I can do now. Because now I don't tolerate it. Now I won't even question. Like, I won't even make a questioning decision of whether I would do those things or not. It's just an absolute no. And maybe you are in a position like where you're still questioning. But I think that can be the stage of where you're trying to learn it. You're trying to understand maybe why it was bad. And if you haven't learned yet, maybe you have to just do it again. Maybe you haven't hit your tolerance level yet. Maybe you haven't gone so far that it doesn't wake you up, like it didn't wake you up yet. Maybe it doesn't bother you enough yet, right? It doesn't seem to affect your life enough where it's noticeable. And as we move up the ranks, that's what happens. Is maybe there was things that we did in the surface level in the beginning that we didn't know like actually affected our lives. Like they weren't the shiny thing that was like, oh, hey, danger. Like they didn't have a danger sign. But it was something that was so small, and maybe it was just poking us, and we're like, whatever. Like I can tolerate something, just poking me. A punch in the face, yeah, I'm not gonna tolerate that. Maybe, right? It's I can tolerate if somebody comes up and pokes me, but somebody comes up and just punches me in the face, I'm gonna be like, I'm either gonna hit back or be like, what the hell? Like you're gonna have a reaction to it. If someone says hi to you, most likely you're gonna say hi back, and it's gonna be a normal response. Like you're gonna be okay with it. If someone just comes over and just flips out and starts swearing at you and going off when you don't even know them, like they're just a random person in the street, it's gonna be like, whoa, whoa, what's going on here? This is not normal. This is not something that should be happening. Like this is not something I would tolerate as a greeting at all. And so our tolerance level always has a level in the beginning, but we don't understand that it will continue to rise. And every time we raise that bar is when we see things break. Is when we see we don't do certain things anymore. We don't have certain people in our lives anymore because we just don't tolerate it. We don't tolerate the behavior. We don't tolerate um, we don't tolerate how they treat us, because that's what becomes so important. Is like, maybe like it was tolerable before, like you just tolerated it. It wasn't a problem to you. It didn't seem to take away from your life. Like you didn't see that danger sign of how it was taking away from your life. But then as you conquered the other battles, you just moved up in the ranks from step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And then once you get to step 5, you're like, oh my gosh, how did I not know about step 5? Like, how did I not know this was a problem for me? How did I not know that I man, I shouldn't even be doing this. I shouldn't be hanging out with these people. I shouldn't be believing this thing. I shouldn't be uh, I shouldn't suck so much, right? Like I shouldn't be like trying I shouldn't be trying to, I guess, be who I was, because I can be who I am now. And that's what I think can be super hard for people, is they still try to be who they were just because they think that's what they have to do, or that it's just ingrained in them, that they can't do anything about it, that it just is what it is, which I do agree with. Some things, they are just what they are. Like events happen, things happen, it is what it is. Sure. But it doesn't mean you can't do anything from it. Like you can't it doesn't mean you can't learn from it. It doesn't mean you can't grow from it. It doesn't mean you can't get better. Like all those events can happen no matter what. And the worst ones even come when like, man, like you're already questioning it, right? Like you're in that stage when you are questioning whether you should tolerate something, whether you should have this thing in your life, whether you should have this person in your life, whether you should, do this thing. It's like you're questioning it. And so you're really stuck in the middle. And those ones can be the hardest because maybe you have this hope that, like, it is okay. It is okay to be in your life. It doesn't affect it. You want those people in your life. You want those things in your life. You want to be able to go do those things. You want to be, and I'm being very vague here because I think everybody has their own. We can like always point out the obvious things, like let's not choose a path of being sleeping on the corner, or not even sleeping, we're passed out because of drugs. Like we're not even in real life, we're hallucinating. We're just bent over and dead, but we're just living bodies. Most everybody can agree that nobody wants to go that path because we tolerate more. We tolerate. We don't tolerate that, right? We have a new tolerant level of like, yeah, obviously, but it's never the obvious things. Getting better and cutting things out, it's always easy for the obvious ones, because if it's obvious, you've already learned from it. You've grown. And sometimes we just start at a level when we're born, right? Everybody starts at a different level when they're born, just from what they're taught, maybe what they're already used to. And then you just go from there. So if it was normal for all of us to be druggies on the street, not even understanding where our bodies are, not even understanding what the earth is, then if you did anything different, everybody would think you're crazy. And then you would be separating yourself from absolutely everybody. But because, that's obviously not the norm, that's not the normal, we're like, yeah, duh, I'm not going to do that. But it's the normal things the things we consider normal now that are the hardest ones to cut out, the hardest ones to grow from. And I can apply this because this is, I talk about business, and most of you guys are probably business or self-improvement or something you've done around business. You understand it. When you hire people, it's pretty obvious the ones you don't hire, right? You have the ones you obviously don't hire from the start. Everybody starts at a level of like beginning hiring, and maybe we all actually do start at different levels, but it's obvious you're not going to hire that guy that's cracked out on the side of the street. Pretty obvious. He's not going to be your guy. I mean, I don't know what business you have that needs him, but we all can agree, don't bring that guy into your company. Like, if somebody takes all of your money out of your bank account, obviously they're bad people to trust with any passwords or anything. Obviously, you don't even want to hang out with them. You want them as far away as possible. You don't want them to know anything. It's pretty obvious. But it's the average level, the normal level, or the average level that we call normal right now, is where the bar sits. We tolerate those things. And so every time we increase that bar, our new normal becomes different. And you start to see the finer details. You start to look a little bit deeper. You start to notice things that you didn't in the beginning. In the beginning, it was very surface level. You weren't deep enough into it yet. But then as you go deeper, you start to notice just the little things that do add up. The little things that make differences. I mean, sometimes I think we even cloud the big things. We think the big things are normal, and then we get deeper and we're like, whoa. Those can be the most laughable and probably the hardest. It's like, it was like the biggest one right in front of my face. How did I not see that? And that's where you start questioning yourself. You're like, what else am I not seeing? Am I that dumb? Like, if that was right in front of my face, how did I not know it? How did I not take action on it? And that's when you know you grew. You're like, well, we're going to find the next one. Because that one is already pushed down into the past. And that's the goal every time, is just find the next one, climb that ladder. Like if you move 100 rungs of a ladder, if you climb 100 rungs, and you thought it was hard just stepping up onto the first one in the beginning, you're going to look down and be like, damn, dude, what are you doing down there? Like, it's not that hard. You're going to be like, I can climb one more. I just climbed 100. What's one more? It's now only 1%. And then you climb 1,000 and you're like, damn, 100 was like nothing. Like I could do another 10%. Whatever. Because you make it normalized. You make that pain normalized. And if we sit in a stage where we don't take the next step, we don't fix the next problem, we don't create ourselves to be a little bit stronger, a little bit more, we just flatline. That's where life can get really messy. Because then you're not, like, you're then that just dead body just staying there, staying still for the rest of your life. You aren't doing anything. And this is where you probably start looking back on your past even more. Because if you're not going up, then you're basically at the top. Like, you're at the top of where you're going. So all you have to look at, like, what are you looking at? Like, there's nothing else, there's no other rung to look at for you. Because you've deleted it in your mind. You think you're at the top of the world. You think you can't do anything better. So all you have is to look down. Right? If you're climbing a mountain, the only thing you see when you look up is the same sky, basically, when you were at the bottom. But now you have been able to give the opportunity to yourself to look down. You can see things, from the bird's eye view. And that's when we start dwelling on these mistakes, dwelling on the past, bringing up the past to the present. And quite honestly, that starts bringing us back down. Because what we prescribe our attention to is where we take action. And where we're going to take action is the direction we're going to go. So if we're just constantly looking down and looking at the past, then we're just going to keep holding the weight. We're just going to keep we're just going to keep it all, and it's going to be a very miserable, stressful life, because you're going to sit there being like, there's nothing better. My life is this, and this is it. And in some scenarios, I bet you could probably argue that it is okay. Like, there are other scenarios that you would probably argue with me. You'd be like, oh, no, it's totally fine with me to be just okay with this. That's fine. Which is true. Maybe it's true for you and it wouldn't be true for me. Just as it might not be true for somebody else. And I just find it so interesting, though, that especially when we're like, we have this gut feeling, we have this questioning, and we just we need to find it out for ourselves sometimes. We just need to hear the answers. We need to get told right in our faces, we need to hear the answers. We need to get punched in the gut. We need to feel it. We need it to destroy our lives before we understand what it meant. Or obviously it was bad for us. Obviously, it wasn't going to be something we should keep in our lives. And then you're like looking at that thing and you're like, wow, how stupid of it was me. How stupid was I to assume that was okay? To assume something more of it. To assume that there was no issues, there was nothing weighing me down there. How stupid was I to think that when when I assumed certain things were just fine and dandy, right? And I think that's what happens when we're like our baby selves, when we're like, we think everything is cool. We think everything is fun. We think everything is just fine, that there's no problems. But then we just get taught lessons. And we start to realize, oh my gosh, oh wow, there is problems. I didn't even know that. I assumed it was like rainbows and butterflies, right? Like I thought it was picture perfect. I thought we were all good. You know, you think, I think when you're younger, you know, you're never taught the negatives, you're never taught the pains until someone says no, until someone does something to you. Like in the beginning, we are our true like good selves, meaning that we actually probably just have no idea of what, you know, we just tolerate everything. We're like, oh yeah, we'll trust anybody. We'll allow anybody to do anything because we don't understand how it affects us yet. And there are certain beliefs that we just put on ourselves that are totally false. They came from the wrong problem. Like we solve for the wrong thing, and then we just sit on that belief for life. And it can be a limiting belief. It can be something somebody else taught us that kept them stuck, but they didn't even know it. Like somebody else tried to teach you something to protect you or to keep you from going some way. But all it was them focusing on the wrong thing. Like failing at business, losing a ton of money, you shouldn't ever come to the conclusion, it's just not for me. Well, then you know what? Probably not. It's probably not for you. You're right. You're right, dude. Like, you can't do anything else in your life now. You can't even do it again. They took the wrong lesson. It wasn't that, you know, just because they lost a ton of money, they failed at this thing, they lost, like in a game, you know, they tripped over, they couldn't stand up, they couldn't do 10 push-ups, that they assume they can never do it again just because they failed once. They assumed that failing meant it was a done deal, that they could only fail once. When you can fail as many times as you want to, it doesn't matter. Because each time you can learn a different lesson. And the lesson isn't that it's a done deal. You're done forever. Go back to doing whatever it is. I don't even know. To me, I don't even think that way. To me, I don't understand it. Because I'm like, if you fail at something, it just gives you another opportunity to look at it, different perspective, with new experiences that you had, and new knowledge, new truths, less lies. Because what you did, and what you probably failed to understand, if you're in the lesson, if you think the lesson was that you had to, you know, you were never going to be good enough anyways, is that you had a lesson within that problem that made you better. That made it so you can go and do it better the next time. That's what you failed to understand. Is that no matter what, if you felt embarrassed, no matter if society just like came down on you and laughed at you because you sucked and you failed, all that is just outside noise. It doesn't matter. There's still a lesson in there that helps you go and start it again if that's the route, or if that was, you know, was the lesson you're taking from it. Sometimes it's not starting it again because the way you started it was bad. The reason you were getting into it maybe was the lesson of that was bad. But you can take it to something else. You can start something else differently. You can do the same thing differently each time. And that's what you should be looking for. Those are the actual correct lessons. Some people just learn the lies, and they believe the lies are the truths. And that's why when Kanye says, I don't know, I'm going to quote it bad, but the truth is crazy in a world full of lies. That's what he was saying. And it's true. Like, that part's true. Like, when you're the exception, you are deemed as crazy. When everything else is a lie, and you're the one truth, or you're the only one speaking the truth, you are absolutely crazy. Because crazy, in everybody else's minds, is different, right? If you're called weird and crazy, just means you're doing something different. You think something different. You're saying something different. And in this case, it could be the truth. I'm not saying it couldn't be a lie. Somebody could be saying something different and it could be a lie. But when the world is full of lies, when everybody else around you is full of lies, you are deemed the odd man out. You are deemed the one that's doing it wrong. Because everybody else is doing it one way. And usually if you look, if that pack is not getting the results that you want, and if they're not even getting the results they want, you probably should change your belief and believe your own thing. Because it's different than what they're doing. At least if you find out yours was wrong, you know that there's two ways that are wrong now. So you got to try a different one. That it only gives you an opportunity to learn whether or not your belief was a lie or a truth and whether it will work or not. So then you can just keep on going. And if they didn't even understand that if they didn't follow you on your truth, that means they were still stuck on that rung of the ladder, that they weren't even willing to take the chance on the next rung that could have been, that was deemed a lie. But then you were already on the next run, so you were already ahead of them, and then that means you could have stepped up to the next one. But now they are so separated. They have to step onto the one that you believed at one point. And then they have to go again. Like, they just have to keep going up. And then sometimes there is situations, that's why we call, our mentors. We're like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Teach me all about it so I don't make the same mistakes. So then you can skip a rung. And that's what a leader is. He's the one making the new path that nobody else is just going to do. They're all just going to sit there and say, nope, this is normal. This is the best we can do. And somebody else is going to come along and then push right through it and show that there was something more. That there was something different that they could do. And that is the new truth. When everybody else believed this one thing, it's very easy to believe it as true. And this is where when you conquer one, it opens up your mind to be like, man, dude, everybody else believed this one thing. I proved it wrong. What else is wrong in this world that I've been taught? What other lies have I been told? This is exactly why when somebody has learned they've been lied to, they question everything else you've said to them. Because all they can see is, damn, if I believe that one, there's got to be more. Maybe there's not. But they're now in the mindset of, there's probably others. You probably lied to me on other things because I believed that one and that was like huge. I was fully invested. And then they might even take it to other people. They're like, man, if I trusted him, my closest friend, like the closest partner you had, the one that you deemed as the highest and closest to you, that you could absolutely trust on everything. If they break your trust, totally betray you on everything, you're going to go totally down, like from the top down, and question everybody. Question everything that's ever been said to you. And this is why the curious ones in this world are the most innovative, and they're the one that are creating new shit all the time. Because the curious one is questioning everything. He finds the truths, and he finds the lies. So once he finds the lies, he knows he now needs to work on finding that truth in that lie. He knows he needs to flip it around. He needs to work on, flipping each little skill lever, each arrow pointing towards the direction he's going. He needs to start building those barriers towards the direction he's going. And that's why you have to have this immense curiosity and questioning of what's going on in this world. Because what everybody thinks was normal once, like the fact that electricity wasn't a thing at one point, but now it's a complete standard that we couldn't live without. Like, we have phones, we have tech, we have robots being built. But at one point, we were like, what's a light bulb? What are you talking about? And then it was like, what do you mean you can send text messages? You're like off the charts. You're psycho. You're crazy. Those people were deemed as totally crazy that they could ever even think of something like that. But now everybody's normal. And we come to accustomed and entitled to it. When at some point, somebody had to be belittled, had to be taken, like torn down by the entire society. Nobody was going in the direction he was going, but he believed in it, and he just worked on it. And he probably ended up finding truth in the beginning that they didn't. Like, he was already 2 steps above. And he's like, no, dude, like, I see this because I've already found out the other lies that you thought, you thought this couldn't happen, but I made it happen. And clearly that means more can happen. And I speak this today because it's like a big experience for me. It's actually like pretty current event type deal. I was like, man, I was an idiot. It's so laughable. It's like, I'm not even gonna be down on myself because I'm like, that's like past me now. Like, I can't believe I believe those things. I can't believe I normalized those things. I can't believe that, I can't believe I had certain people around me that I fully trusted or even like trusted a lot, or thought I assumed it was more than it was. It's like, wow, dude. But then it creates a new light to reinforce the direction that actually does align with you, the truths for yourself. And it's like, even when you've shown all options, saying, if you had 10 people tell you something and each one was different, you're absolutely confused. And now you have to go through each one. And this is like the game of options. It's like, I don't even understand. Like, I'm completely an idiot. I don't actually know what this means. I haven't seen all perspectives. I haven't seen all the reasons. So you have to try everything. You have to just try it. You have to get a taste test. Because it's like trying one ice cream or trying one singular food and then saying, yeah, I'm never having this again. But maybe it was the way it was cooked. Maybe it was a flavor. Maybe it was the spices put in it. You're making your judgment off of, that one. But now let's try it, like all 10 different variations. And then even though like you might have gone into something, you were like questioning it. Maybe you were already set like, oh no, dude, this is the path. But then you didn't know the other variables. You're like, you didn't see those perspectives yet. You didn't fully understand what those other things meant, so you still questioned whether you were going on the right path. So that means you might have to just experience it all. And that's where it becomes like the hard lesson, and you become the person that has to learn it yourself, which can sometimes be an idiot type deal. But there's always things we have to learn ourselves, and it will strengthen what we believe in. So then you go do those things. You go those directions. You select those options. And then you're like, whoa, no. The other one was actually the correct option. This is not even close. Or maybe something was close and you're like, well, it's close. Like you have two things that are like very close. And then so like each of them might just mean you have to get deeper on them. Like you have to have more variables. You have to have more tolerant levels of like, well, if we go into this way and we just keep on going, and then you'll find the problem. You're like, oh no, dude. That is why that one was not the option for us. That's not the option for me. And so and right now that's why it's like super current event for me. It's like you already know what growth is kind of like. You already know the embarrassment feels like. You already know what each feeling is. You've had the experiences to learn from, grow yourself. You've seen the patterns, and maybe some patterns didn't fully give you an answer yet. So you just had to you had to try it again in a slightly different way. And then, that slightly different way doesn't work. Or the thing that you tolerated, obviously, like you were maybe told that things were going to happen before you understood that they are happening. Like you were already told exactly what's coming ahead of you. You just might have not believed it yet. And then most of the time, once those things actually do happen, like if somebody predicted something and told you it, and maybe it was ahead of you and you didn't fully believe them and trust them, and you just went and did your own thing anyways, you still went the bad path, and then you learned for yourself, you're going to go back to them and be like, dude, you can tell me you told me so, because you were totally right, and I clearly was too stupid to understand it for myself, and I had to go through it myself. But now that is totally past me. It's not even a question. That same person, now they're going to tell you something else. You're probably going to believe them a little bit more. Whether it was right, like the next thing is right or not, you're going to believe them a little bit more because they were right about the first thing. They were right about the last thing. And if they're exactly where you want to be, most of the time, not everybody's the same. Not everybody lives the same life, and not everybody wants the same thing. Like everybody has a different variable, but they're usually right. If they're ahead of you, they're usually right, especially the generalized big stuff. If you see it amongst like 10 peers that are, accompanied in the direction you want to go, and they can all tell you the same struggle, the same thing you're going to go through, the same, situations that are going to happen, it's most likely going to happen. Because if each of them even had their own different variable of like what they actually wanted in life, who they were, what their interests were, generalized, it was going to happen. And I'm going to leave you guys out on this one note that I've made. Or I guess, I don't know if I guess you can say I made it. I came up with it. It was a thought that was in my mind, and I wrote it down. And it was that I don't think I'm better than you. But if you're attached to my old self, I am beyond that. I am ahead of that. And where we can wrap this up to basically this whole conversation is, no, like, dude, I don't think I I could do anything more than you could. But because you're still stuck on that lower rung, I am above you. I am ahead of you. Right? I am already on the next step. So if you're attached to my old self that was with you at the old rung on the ladder, I am ahead of you. And I say that because we try not to be bad people, or we try to assume people are bad when they're like, I'm just better, or, you know, I have more than you, right? It's always this like, I have more, I can do more, which can be, it's totally true, but it doesn't mean that person beneath you, let's say like they don't have as much, they haven't learned as much, they don't have the skills yet. It doesn't mean that they can't do it. It just means that they're still stuck in that position that is beneath you. And that relationally is where this whole phrase comes in to play. Relationally, if I grew, I'm different, I'm a changed person, and you're still attached to the person that was, quite honestly, you're attached to nobody. Like you don't know me anymore. You don't know me at all. I'm ahead of you now. You didn't grow with me. You didn't grow in this direction with me. So I'm ahead of you now. You're in the dust. I don't even know that guy you think of. I don't even know that person you're associating with. Who is he? Who is she? That's the past. Past me. And if you're attached to that person, just know you're attached to the past. And that's the truth. Because that past person is not the new one, is not the current one. And if you are a type of person that's always changing, always growing immensely, like every single day, where in 6 months you're unrecognizable, you are going to be that person all the time where people just might have to keep up with you. And you're going to stand out. You're going to be ahead of them. And they might remember you for who you were. And you're so beyond it. You're like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, this doesn't even make sense to me. I can't even comprehend this because that's not even close to being me anymore. Like, totally beyond me. Like, I'm totally beyond it. Like, what are you talking about? We're up here. Why are you looking at my feet? That's the truth of it. And that is so strong in any situation. Especially if you're growing. If you're not growing, if you're staying at the one rung, then you are going to see people leave you. Like, you are going to see people get better than you. And then you're probably going to think that they're bragging. You're probably going to think that they're arrogant. You're probably going to think that they're horrible people because they can do everything that you can't. Well, probably they can, because you didn't do anything. You didn't move. You didn't try to, grow and change. You didn't try to analyze, what's wrong with your life or what the problems are, and then actually take the right lessons. Or if they're ahead of you, stop discounting it. Be like, oh man, my buddy got so much better than me in this area. Ask him for the advice. Ask him for like what he figured out. Some people just might figure certain things out faster than you. And you're like, oh man, like, I guess bring me with you. Like, what is it? But then you have to take the action. Like, you can't just, and you have to accept it too. You can't think advice to you from the guy, that's already accomplished something is directed to, whether it's like you take it in as a hate, you take it in as somebody just bragging, whether you take it in as somebody who's trying to control everything you do by just telling you what to do. Take it in as a constructive criticism and know that they are probably better. And obviously they've shown that. So you apply it to your life and you keep up with them. It's just, it is what it is, right? That's where it is what it is. That's exactly what it is. So yet again, I'll reiterate, it's not that I think I'm better than you. that you might be attached to my old self, and I am ahead of that person. I am better than that person. Thank you guys. See you next one.